So, Josie, thank you very much for making time to share your insights into the future of technology. You are the chairman of the Eskom Development Foundation, and you carry many, many responsibilities.
Yes.
But before we go into your career, can you share with us a little bit about your background and where did you grow up?
Yeah. I was born and bred in Bloemfontein, which is the town in the center of South Africa. That is where the African National Congress was born, in Bloemfontein. And I grew up there. I went to primary and high school in Bloemfontein. I passed my matric in 1976. As you know, that 1976 was the year when we had the riots and the students, and I was part of those students who were revolting against the forced medium that we should be taught in Afrikaans as a medium of instruction. So after that, after passing my matric, I then worked for a company which was a merchandising company. It was called H.M. Elliott. What it was doing was that it was distributing Robertson spices across the country. So they would come from Durban, they would land them in Bloemfontein by train, and then they would use trucks to distribute it across South Africa. Those were the days where you had your salesmen and saleswomen, very few saleswomen anyway at that time, who would drive to small little towns and take orders, and we will then get into the trucks and then deliver Robertson spices. I spent a year there, and thereafter I then went to go and teach as an unqualified teacher in Kuruman. And at the same time I was studying, and in 1990 I had qualified as a teacher, and then I started teaching.
What subjects were you teaching?
I taught mathematics. It was interesting that I taught mathematics, I taught biology, but the most interesting part is because of the shortage of teachers, they also asked me to teach history. So, which was unusual for a history teacher to also teach mathematics. So I was actually studying the history at the same time teaching it to the students, which was almost a challenge and a difficult. But I came to love history very much. So I then taught there, and then later, after I've had enough money, I went to university. I educated myself. I made sure when I was a teacher that I saved a lot of my greatest percentage of my little salary, and then I went to university. And at university, I came in and I did a BA. I majored in 3 courses: psychology, history, and political science. And I loved political science. I passed my junior degree with a distinction cum laude, and then I went on to go and do an honors degree in political science, which I passed with a distinction too, cum laude.
Right.
After that, what happened then, I got a Fulbright scholarship to go and study in the US. And there I went to Denver University. In Denver, I did Masters in International Relations as a Fulbright scholar. Got that, came back to South Africa. Now, I came back to South Africa in 1991, 92, just after the release of Nelson Mandela. Now, when I was in the US, I participated actively in the struggle for the liberation of South Africa.
Right.
Yeah, I worked with a number of organizations. So when I came back, I continued doing that, but also went back to go and teach as a teacher, and then I was appointed a principal in 92.
Right.
Yeah, 93, 94. As you remember, it was when South Africa gained its liberation in April. So as a member of the ANC, I had the privilege of being invited to go and be one of the first black officers or officials, as we call them in South Africa, of the South African Parliament. So I was there as Parliament started, the new democratic Parliament, and I was an officer in Parliament, one of the executive team, the people who were, they call him the Secretariat of Parliament.
Right.
You see, and I had a very interesting title to my job. It was called Table Assistant. And that is the language they use in Parliament.
Right.
You know, why they call it table assistant? The table here, remember in Parliament we say, the minister tabled his piece of legislation. So he actually put it on the table, which is in front of the speaker. So which means I was part of the team that assisted with drafting, doing legislation, making sure that legislation goes through Parliament.
Okay.
So which means that as a table assistant, I was 2 steps away from what we call the Secretary of Parliament. So you're a table assistant, there are a lot of people below you, and then you become an under-secretary, and then you become the Secretary of Parliament. So I was then also promoted from table assistant and became the Under-Secretary of Parliament, appointed as Under-Secretary for Parliament. Now, one of the things that happened, so in Parliament, this is how it works. You have 2 houses of Parliament, the National Assembly, and the Senate. That's what we had in Parliament.
Right.
National Assembly and Senate, 1994. But remember, in 1994, the South Africa in 1994 was using what they call an interim constitution. It was not a final constitution because they wanted to make sure that the constitution is going to be drafted by elected officials. So they had a constitution which was negotiated before 1994, which was agreed by everybody, but they said, this is not the final constitution. We will work on a final constitution after we are being elected.
Right.
So the work starts now. So which means in Parliament we had the National Assembly as a house, the Senate as a house, and then also the Constitutional Assembly. So we had 3 houses. But the Constitutional Assembly was almost a temporary house. It was only for the purpose of drafting the Constitution. And it was under the leadership of Cyril Ramaphosa.
Okay.
Yes, Cyril Ramaphosa was the head of the Constitutional Assembly. Then they start thinking, what type of National Assembly we want? It was easy. There are lots of National Assembly all over the world. They send people to go and check and come back and debate, and ultimately agreed on the National Assembly that you have today of 400 members of Parliament and that type of thing. Then they asked themselves, what type of a Senate do you want? The second chamber. Looked at the US, you know, where you have also the House of Representatives and the
Senate.
The Senate. Who was doing that work? Bulelani Ngcuka, leading that team, and myself. You see, Bulelani Ngcuka was a member of Parliament. I was a staff member. So we are giving him support. And there we went to, first of all, of course, we went home first, home in quotation mark. Remember, we were colonized by the British. And looked at the House of Lords. We didn't like it. We didn't like it. Went to the US. Look at it. We don't like it. Where else? Germany.
Okay.
Germany. Choeu, Bulano. Go and look at what they're doing in Germany. And we liked what was happening in Germany. So the second House of Parliament in South Africa, and many people don't know, it was the Bundesrat. It was modeled along the Bundesrat. Now, because people don't know Germany a lot, they get surprised when they come here because we are more closer to the English world, the Commonwealth. They say, but your second house doesn't look like ours. The Sotho will say, no, but you don't look like us. And all that say, no. For the second house, we took almost 80% of the Bundesrat. We looked at the Bundestag. We said, no, well, we don't like, but the Bundesrat looks like you are able to have the provinces represented well if you take the Bundesrat. So if you walk into our parliament now and you look at the what you call now the National Council of Provinces, it is actually how the Bundesrat worked to make sure that. So that's what happened.
So what was it you liked about the German model?
Because the provinces are able, you see, with the British model, and they don't represent well the federation. You don't get that closely working in. It's just a house. We just not talk to the provinces, But here, the Bundesrat is a system where you have to make sure that the wishes of the provinces are well articulated at the national level. That is what we liked about the Bundesrat.
Decentralization.
Yes, that's what happens. So, the other thing then that happened was that we were looking at a number of legislation. And at that time, one of the legislations I was assisting with was what is called the Telecommunications Act 103 of 1996. I worked a lot on that piece of legislation with everybody. So, 1997, I was still in Parliament. So, 1998, during the year in 1997, Telkom approached me and said to me, we want to offer you a job to come and assist us in the implementation of the Telecommunication Act. You were working with this in Parliament, you're doing this, so you know what's happening there. So come and work with us. And that's how I left Parliament and joined Telkom as in their government, in the public policy and government relations section. From there, I worked with them for about 5 years. Then I went to Microsoft. And then from Microsoft, I went to Eskom. Yes. And that's where I am at Eskom at the moment.
So Choeu, looking back at your career, as you grew up, did you have a dream career? Was there a dream career in your head already? Or did that evolve over time?
No. When I was a young boy, I wanted to become a priest of the Anglican Church. I grew up in my grandmother ensured that on Sunday I go to church, on Monday there was something in the afternoon, what they call them, I don't know why they call them classes, just classes, but it was where they would teach you about the Bible and everything. So Monday afternoon I would be there. On Thursday I would go to church for scouts, drum majorettes and all this type of thing. And on Friday, every Friday afternoon I'll go to church because we're going to be trained how to assist the priest on Sunday, like the boat boys and servicing, helping the priest to service everything. So I grew up in a church. So I'm going to be a priest. You see. By the time I did standard 10, matric, I totally forgotten about it. I wanted to become a teacher. Because my principal is the man who inspired me a lot.
Who's it?
My principal.
Ah, the principal.
Yeah, the school, my headmaster.
Okay.
Oh, I loved that man. I even spoke like him, I walked like him. I just loved this man because he was very good for us. So I said, no, I'm going to be a teacher.
And can you tell us, throughout your career, who else were your sources of inspiration?
First of all, my principal was a source of inspiration. And then there was not a friend of mine, my colleague who was a principal of a school. He was much older than me. You understand? And he took a special interest in me, you know, to tell me how to become a successful high school principal. What are the things? So he passed away in a car accident. His name was Ishmael Matlape. He passed away in a car accident. Matlape, this guy. He taught me a lot about leadership. Because at that time, remember, it was the days of apartheid. There were riots. Schools were very unstable. It was difficult to run a successful school, and I did. People who know me will tell you that when I was a principal of school, my high school, my results were good and what have you. And most of the tactics, the style, the how, I was taught by this man called Ishmael Matlape. So my principal at high school, an inspiration to me. My colleague, who was older than me, an older principal, also inspired. The two of them really shaped my ideas. But also, I'm a voracious reader. I read a lot of bibliography and biographies of leaders and that type of thing. And a number of these, and I read almost all the books from Sun Tzu to Machiavelli, and just to try and see. I was inspired by how to become a successful, at that time, school principal. How do you run a good school? How do you lead teachers? How do you have a common purpose, common vision? How do you, it was a challenge. It was tough. But these were the two people that really inspired me.
And Choeu, looking back at your career, what would you say were the turning points where you could have taken a different decision and decided to take your life and your career?
Remember, the first one was, I wanted to become a priest. And seriously too, not? But meeting this man, the principal of my school, changed my ideas of becoming a priest and said, probably I'll do better as a teacher. I became a teacher. And I joined politics. Fighting for the liberation of this country inspired me a lot and made a lot of changes in me. Because then, remember, I was a teacher. Then because I was now working hard within the ANC, instead of continuing as a teacher, I changed to go into politics, you see. Because at university, I did political science and I loved it and what have you. So it changed me and really turned me from the road that I thought I'll become a principal of a teacher, a principal of a school, an inspector. At that time, if after principal you became an inspector, and then I would go up. Now, I totally changed from that route to go into a different political, public policy, legislation type of life. So that is where I took a total turn from that line and then went into a different line because of what was happening politically in the country.
And can you tell us what is driving you today?
Today?
Yes.
If you look at what I've been doing in the past 10 years, you will see one common thread. And that is working with business organizations to try to ensure that we build the economy of the country, and by so doing, able to close the gap, the poverty gap. I strongly believe that governments are there to create policy, to create the environment, to put together legislation. Government cannot create jobs. I have a strong belief that that can be done. That is why I'm a member of the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And I was its president for a long time. I'm the member of the ITA, Information Technology Association, and I was its president also for a long time. I'm the vice president of the American Chamber of Commerce, where I work with the American companies to attract them to South Africa, so that they invest in South Africa, and by so doing to grow the economy, so that we can have jobs. And when we have jobs, people are able then to look after their families, and we reduce unemployment. That's my strong belief. And that is why I am in these organizations. I spend most of my life moving from one meeting of one organization to the other, to work with everybody and say, how do we, first of all, put pressure on government to come up with the type of legislation that will ensure that we build a strong economy. That is what inspires me, and this is what I do. And this is what I've been doing all of the time.
Now, Josie, let us talk about the future of technology. Looking forward, what does the future of technology mean to you? And what does it mean to you in terms of leading the country and the world and humanity into a better future?
You know, technology is a winner, especially for emerging countries like South Africa. If you think about it, the European countries during the Industrial Revolution, they had it tough. It was tough to build massive firms and industries. It took long, it took a lot of manpower, and many people died building these massive railways through tunnels and up the mountains and what have you, with little technology then, and mostly using their hands and all this type of thing. Emerging countries just have to look at what they did, because the technology has actually make it much more easier, make it much more faster, and it's adoptable. So, if you run a country as South Africa, you just have to study what happened. You have the history. The failures, the successes are there for you, readily available. You see, you just have to look at them, and in quotation mark, because I don't like this word copy, mimic what they did, and customize it to your own industry. You understand? But the assumption is you are putting a lot into the education of your people, so that they've got skills, they've got science, they've got mathematics. And it's easy because you can take them to, like I said, we went to Germany to go and look at the second House of Parliament, and we have got one of the most successful Houses of Parliament now. Everybody looks at South Africa's Parliament and say, we love what is happening. This life, this, even other things. We've got universities all over the world where we can send our kids to go there and bring those skills in South Africa. But when they come back, they must find that Parliament has created, a number of pieces of legislation that will enable them to innovate. And one pillar is intellectual property rights. There is no way, if you don't have a very progressive intellectual property rights regime or legislation, it's going to be very difficult to attract the minds of the people to come to your universities and to know that I can do something and it will be protected, understand? And in this environment. So is your education system first, then your intellectual property rights, and when I'm saying the ones that are progressive, I don't mean that it must just be tough and say, if you have this thing, you can't share it. No, it must say, this is yours. This is protected. Nobody can steal it from you. But come on, Nick. Show other people. Yeah. Don't protect this thing for 20, 30 years, man. You see, let's grow this. It's yours. We'll protect it. It's your toy. But play with the other boys. Put it on the field and then play with the other boys and what have you. But if they mess up, know that we will punish them.
Okay.
Yeah, we will punish them if they mess up with your toys. You see. But allow your toy to be also on the field and play with everybody, knowing that there's legislation that will protect me. So Choeu want to steal one of my wheels. You see. It will still be intact. Then in that way, we are protecting you. It's like a soccer match. You understand? The referee is there all the time. He doesn't stop the play and say, you guys don't play, you are going to kick each other. No. You see? Because then there's no soccer. He says, play. And he's got a referee there. And somebody kicks you, say, hey, no. You understand? So if we can adopt that method, like soccer, where there's that you can go and play, you are protected by the referee, so that nobody's going to kick you. You are allowed to score the goal, and it will be fair. Of course, then there will be penalties there, and then, of course, there are penalties for doing that. That is, for me, at the core of creating innovation, that people can know that we will participate here and we'll have our ideas here and we will be protected. You see, nobody is going to steal our thing. And then people can do that. That's what I believe in technology. Because technology is a winner. Yeah, it really closes the gap quite quickly. You don't have to walk the same road that was worked by Germany when they created a Mercedes-Benz. No. You can do it shorter, quicker, simpler. Working with them. Don't steal that stuff. They must know that, no. If we bring our Mercedes-Benz in South Africa, we will play with the South Africans. And the law in South Africa is protecting us. Understand? Then we can say to South Africans, no. You don't have to buy the wheels. We'll give you the wheels for free. We'll give you the engine for free. You can put our engine in your car and we can collaborate and cooperate and work together. No, that's it. That's my... for as long as you will tell people that it's my engine that you are using, then it's an ecosystem. You see, it's an ecosystem. No, I don't believe in the system of either or. Like open source that side and then proprietary source that side. It's stupid. The open source people must realize that you have to protect it. You see, the proprietary people also must know that you have to work with the people. Remember in the olden days, you see, people don't see it that way. That was when I was working for Telkom. People will come to Telkom and say, why don't you put lines in the deep rural areas? I said, no, they're poor. We won't get our money. Until somebody says, hey, by the way, those poor people, they've got rich relatives in Johannesburg. If you put a line there, yes, they may not be able to call, but the people in Johannesburg will call them, will send money now, you see. And then, of course, the old lady, your mother, will be able to make a call, a reverse charge call. And suddenly this line makes money. So people always think, open up your mind, to possibilities. You'll actually see now, because people ask, why is Nick working in such poor areas? Where will he get the money? They don't understand that you're using your brain to find out how to open up this market. Yes, the pillar, intellectual property rights, is for me one of the things that bothers me in South Africa, that we keep on. You walk into one meeting, people tell you about open source. You go to another meeting, you get people talk about proprietary, and both of them are fighting against each other. I said, that's nonsense.
Now, Josie, When you speak to aspiring leaders, to future leaders, what do you tell them they should focus on for future-proofing their career?
First of all, you must have an open mind. Have a global mind. Don't have only a local mind. I'm not saying don't ignore the local, but open yourself to possibilities. Know that the world is an oyster. It's open for you. Try to learn, deeply learn all technologies that are there. Be technologically agnostic. Don't say, I'll move with that technology and not that one. Embrace technology. You see, open mind is the one that will be able enable you to go above, to go over the mountains, to go through the rivers. But if you think too local, and so I want South Africa to develop better than Zimbabwe, you're not going to win. You must say, I want South Africa to contribute to the economic development of the region of the continent of the world. You see, fight for openness, open borders. You know what? There are a lot of people who come to South Africa here that we refer to as immigrants, one of you. You know why they come? They know that because you won't allow them to come anyway. You see. But if they know, and they're sitting in Congo or Zaire, and they know that we can go to South Africa and come back, they won't sit here in South Africa. They'll come and do what they do, share ideas, contribute, and go back home. But if you want to close them here in Congo, and close them out of South Africa, they will come anyway. They will jump. People are like that by nature. But if you have open borders, people come to your countries for the purpose, for the legitimate purpose of what they want to do, and they go back in their countries for the purpose that they want to do. And they know if you are looking for them, you can easily come into their country. They can easily come into your own country. Open borders, collaboration, open systems. It's what would work for me. And I would want to inspire the future leaders. Ignore the type of Trump world of America alone. We will win alone. It won't happen. It won't happen. That is why, even if you look at the Nobel Prize for mathematics and all these type of things, most of them are in the US. But if you look at where do they come from, you'll find that they went to the US to go and study and to work, and they stayed there. No country in the world can make it alone. Not at all. Closed countries never succeed. Open countries succeed much more better than them.
Now, Josie, looking into the future, what would you say are the technologies or the tools of technology that will be driving the future?
You know, remember, I don't start from technology. I'm very passionate about this open Internet of Things. The Internet can only work if we have open borders, open everywhere. So number one, Internet of Things. To connect everybody all over the world, to get access to all the markets, to all the information which is all over the world. So one thing that I would say, the current leaders, ITA, if they go to a conference, they must say the conference was successful because one of the things that resolutions we took is that we are going to push South Africa to put a lot of resources into the Internet of Things. That's number one. Sorry.
So the Internet of Things
Okay, I'm coming.
is number one.
Number two.
Yes.
Yeah. Now that, remember, Internet of Things is nothing else but open. Open access, open connections, open move, being able to move. That's Internet of Things. To be able to connect this window to this wall and this wall to this thing, and then they can talk to each other. Number 2 is artificial intelligence. That into the future, if you don't put a lot into artificial intelligence, because that's what Internet of Things will enable to you to do, for this thing to intelligently communicate with each other. I don't know why we call it artificial, because it's created by man, you know. So I don't know why, because artificial is an inanimate object, you see. And I don't see an Internet of Things as being artificial. Is that people take their knowledge and their brains and their interconnection, and you put life into this thing. It's dead. Artificial intelligence gives it life. It can talk to this. So it's not artificial, it's you. You see, there's a bio, there's a person who's enabling these things. I think we call it artificial intelligence because it's been done by artificial things. But if you can think about it, artificial intelligence means giving life to that which does not have life. That is why there's a lot of something that at the same time we must always artificial intelligence ethics. You know, as you know, people are worried that one day we will be able to create a human being, you know, a robot that will just be a human being. That's why ethics is also, values and ethics are very important to me as to get inspired to innovate, also have the conscience, you know, and the ethics and the values that inspires that type of thing. So that artificial intelligence. Then, of course, one of the things that you see, it's a very interesting thing. It's Internet of Things here,
Right.
okay? It's artificial intelligence. You see, open. But I spoke about intellectual property right. But Nick also still a human being, still wants his own toys. You see, I said, but where do you store them? Cloud technology. You see. You see, this information is my information. I don't want. And you guys say, where are you going to store it? Cloud technology is going to be important. You know, one of the things that I don't like, now I'm deviating a little bit, what I don't like about us.
Yeah.
When I say us,
Right.
is we the IT people, is how we name things. Why did we call this storage cloud? Why? It's because we want to talk to each other, because people look at the clouds. Remember, we are not doing this for us. We forget, we're doing it for even the poor people and other people and the businessmen, the accountant and what have you. Now, how do you go and tell an accountant that you're going to put his most valuable stuff in a cloud? Why did we not use something that, like, we'll call it Alcatraz. This technology, we're going to call it Alcatraz. Even if it's cloud technology. The naming, it's important. Because many people say, but the clouds, they're here today. They disappear within 2-3 minutes. You don't see them. They move. And you say you're going to put my valuable information in the cloud. You see, naming convention in IT is a very stupid thing, because we have not understood that we have a customer. We're not doing these things for ourselves. You know, we love these names that are Internet of Things, cloud technology, artificial intelligence, and I mean, there are so many. If you get two guys like technology talking to each other, you'll think that they're talking Greek or mass language. We forget that the end, it's the customer. the customer want to use this. So when you come to your customer and say, hey, how are you now? Fine, eh? We're going to store your stuff. And you want to make me so and say, where in it loud to say, get out of here. I'm not going to get my stuff being stored. So one of the things that I want us technologists to do is to do what the lawyers are doing now. The lawyers used to use Latin. They soon realize Latin, no. We're doing this for our client. Just stop the Latin. Then they also had what they call legal terms. They're moving away from them. And we're using simple English now. You can read a judgment now today without a struggle. But if you take a judgment that was made 20 years ago or 30 years ago, you'll not be able to finish a page. You won't understand what the hell are they talking about? Yet they're talking about you see. So we have to also, start thinking about using simple language that is accessible. Because remember, one of the things about technology is accessibility. People must access, reach, use, pass, share this information.
Now, Choeu, in this connected world of ours, in this open society, open future, what would you tell aspiring leaders? How should they go about building their own brand, building their own networks, building their own leadership, based on how you have built your own network, how you have built your own brand of leadership over these years? What should they be looking at, especially in terms of technology and social media?
The first thing is participate. Don't be alone. You'll learn nothing. Participate in organizations, in platforms, with your neighbors, with other companies. Form an ecosystem. Be part of ITA, American Chamber of Commerce, South African Chamber of Commerce. Be there, share your ideas, test your ideas. Alone, you'll not be able to move an inch. Because your purpose is to assist others so that they can also assist you. So together you can develop. So that is the first thing. Number two, don't be intimidated by technology. One of the things that I don't like where I work now at Eskom is some Eskom members saying to me, they won't be on WhatsApp, they will not be on Facebook, they will not be on this type of thing. I said, you know what? It means you are dead. You already are there. Your information is, just click your name. Put in your name and you'll see what comes up. Without you, you never loaded that information. But just see what will come up. If you're able to search properly, you'll find that you are all over. The thing is, don't be intimidated. No. Try to find out. If it's Facebook, this thing about Facebook and people information being all over the place and what have you. You know what? I can understand. But I don't think that people must fear that. Information is already there. You just know how to protect your most valuable information and how to check it. You will not be able, in fact, you will not be able to protect your information just by not participating in Facebook, in LinkedIn, in all this stuff. In fact, there's more to gain by participating in all these platforms, if you can, than by not being there at all. Because when you participate and you know them well, you will know if somebody has moved into what is your private space. But if you don't participate, you think, oh no, I've kept this information alone. But because you know nothing about technology, they are busy inside there. The day you open up, so, oh, there's nothing. I thought I protected this. And people say, no, that's because you feared. You know, you're intimidated. You didn't want to get in and see what is happening and knowing how to protect yourself. You know how to protect yourself by participating, not by staying outside, because technology moves in leaps and bounds. You see. So I don't like when anybody, in fact, I said to my colleagues, immediately you say you don't want to participate on these platforms, know that you are unable to protect the company. Because you move into a cocoon and you close yourself up.
Now, Choeu, over your career, you've been mentoring many future leaders. Can you maybe share with us a success story or two where you mentored somebody and that person took your advice to heart and went on to achieve success?
First of all, the majority of the people that I taught with when I was a principal, about 4 or 5 of them are principals of schools now themselves. They were really inspired, and up to now, they contact me on a very regular basis to say to me, we're happy that this. Number 2, business people. Quite a number of students that I taught are successful business people now, and extremely successful and doing extremely well in their work. Number 3, and most importantly, in the IT industry, when I was president of this different thing, I attracted a number of people to come in and be in this industry, which originally they did not like, it was IT is only for technicians and all this type of thing. I made IT simple and straightforward to show people IT is not for technicians. IT is for leaders. It's a tool that enables you to achieve your objectives and things that you want to do in life. One of the people that I worked hard with, Dr. Andrew Baganse, that I would like you also to talk to. Yeah, he is at Vodacom now. Do you know him?
I know of him.
Yes. Yeah. I actually mentored that young man. I still remember the day he had to go overseas, to go and do his doctorate. He didn't want to go. I had to sit him down to tell him why he has to leave his job at Telkom and leave the country. And today he's back and he's one of the most leading regulatory experts. He is an expert. He's called all over the world to go and talk about technology. If you can talk to him, he will tell you what role I played. Normally when you leave a job, especially when you go to another company, the people say, Tata, when I left Telkom, if you go back now, my staff members have my pictures on the wall. A former employee who left, not like I retired as part of, no, but they treat me as if I retired. They're still there because I built that regulatory team together with them. So I have quite a number. Names can come readily now, but I like Dr. Andrew Baganse as one of those people that will tell you how I inspired them to be what they are today.
Now, Choeu, talking about leadership, who are the role models of leadership, or maybe the books about leadership, that you would suggest future leaders should study?
First of all, before I mention names, the only way you can reach other people is by reading about them or reading their stuff. So leadership, reading takes you into that space where you have not been. I believe that if you are a leader today, life is too short to wait to experience the challenges of leadership. Therefore, go and read what other people have written about how they were faced with difficulties and how they struggled, sometimes winning, sometimes losing, so that you are not equally going to go through that. Sun Tzu, Chinese book, it's one of the beautiful books about how to look at leadership and be strategic about the manner in which you deal with leadership and deal with the intricacies of this leadership. Machiavelli, a totally different style of leadership, which is based on pessimism and how to, to win through devious means, and how to be very careful and look around yourself. Another most important person to read, Machiavelli, the Prince. The book is The Prince. To read The Prince. To immerse yourself on Shakespearean books. When I was a teacher, I loved Shakespeare because Shakespeare, all his books about men battling with ambition, like Macbeth, ambition, Julius Caesar, Antony, Mark Antony, all these, Brutus, the brutal, all these about it, and come all the way to Draca, when you start talking about now trying to put spaces in, this is how leadership has got to be, making leadership something that is a subject that you can study on school, to say to people, you may be born with some characteristics that are good for you as a leader, but you can still learn leadership at school through mentoring, by being mentored by others, being shown and what have you. You're not just necessarily, you are born a king and therefore you are able to lead. You see, you can, and come back and come and look at the current crop of leadership, those that passed away like Jobs, how, if you read the life of Jobs, you can see a person struggling as a young person, how he comes to succeed, failing, starting again, and coming back and dying as one of the best technology leaders that you can ever have. Bill Gates, who I worked for, how he really started, understand, and became the leader he is today. Up to the current leader like Mick Whiteman, what if you, but today you have all these young people, that Zuckerberg and all this type of thing. But don't only read the current leaders, read also the old leaders and see, because technology has always been there, coming up, how the history of technology, how do we come to be there? Because some of the problems we are facing today are because of the inability of the old leaders to deal with them. And some of the successes we have today is the successes that were born many, many, many years back.
Now, Choeu, how can people connect with you and where can they follow you?
I'm on almost all platforms. You find me on LinkedIn. I have almost 11,000 followers on LinkedIn, connected with about 11,000. Right. Very few people are able to move beyond 10,000 people. If you go and look on my site, it's one of the most active. I actually, deliberately, I woke up early and I spend the first hour, go to Facebook, check everything on Facebook. Does anybody talk to me? What's happening on Facebook? Then I go to LinkedIn. These two I check daily. The others I check when I have a space there, but these two are for me the most basic. Then of course Twitter is the whole day, as people tweet, and I check it on a regular basis. Then when I'm just sitting down and relaxing with my beer and what have you, then I'll go to Instagram, but I am on Spotify and I'm on almost every platform. I'm an activist on social media. I love social media. I spend my time there because I'm very busy, but also I need fun. You see, so from time to time when I have fun, I go and check on Instagram my daughters, all their pictures, and I talk to them, and because that's where they talk. They don't want you to, hello baby, how are you? No, they're not used to that. No, on WhatsApp they did a picture, and they showed me the picture of the granddaughter. No, it's not that. Say, speak to the granddaughter. Say hello to her. Oh no, the kitchen goes on. No. Just send the picture of a granddaughter doing something beautiful and what have you. I'm happy, That's how they communicate, the kids today, not a long distance call.
Well, they say a picture speaks 1,000 words.
A picture speaks 1,000 words. And that is why I would like the ITA itself as an organization to show people the value of technology. Because these things that happen on Facebook intimidate a lot of people, and people focus on the negative part, you see. They don't focus on the positive part of technology.
Now, Choeu, last but not least, is there one piece of advice that you would like to give to future leaders to implement in their own leadership and remember on a day-to-day basis?
That as leaders, ethics is important. We have so much power in our hands. We can destroy the world and other people if we don't embrace ethical leaderships. Where we talk about corruption and all those things is absence of ethics. And people start hating technology because people think it's unethical. People think there is no relationship between ethics and development and modernization, and it has been done for many years. Old people in like modern, this modern kids and what if you always contrast the two, and through them is technology. But let's try to be ethical. Let's not use our evil intentions and say it's technology. Technology is there because we are leaders and we are making it to happen. That's what I would tell. Ethical leadership for me is important.
Choeu, thank you so much for sharing your own journey, sharing your insights, and reminding us that humanity must partner technology.
Yes.
And inspiring us to look for a better way.
Yes.
And helping us to build the future. You are a great inspiration, and especially your background from a teacher and an activist to this day, I find extremely inspiring. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart to help us build a better world.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nick.
Thank you.